veganism in running is becoming much, much, much bigger. Pretty much everything I do, I sit down and think, can this be of use to animals? When I became vegan, it was like a word that people didn't even know what it meant. I didn't plan to break world records, I didn't plan to be a runner. I was told I would never walk again, let alone I would definitely never run. Sceptical they probably can't be because you're actually beating people. It was eating me up, the anger, the frustration, why can't people see the world as I see it? The motivation behind my running gives me so much strength. I want to be the best I can, to be the best role model I can. And it's all come through a passion of just wanting to help animals. They can't speak, but I can speak for them. Just do it. I mean, you won't look back.
Hello, I'm here today with Fiona Oakes, an elite marathon runner and a world record holder. Hi Fiona, thanks for coming here to talk to me.
You're welcome.
So you've been running these amazing races, marathons, ultra marathons, but you also run an animal sanctuary. So how did it all come about in the first place? I know that's a loaded question, but if you can briefly describe how it all happened in the first place.
So I went vegetarian when I was 3 years old, totally self-inspired. That progressed on to veganism when I was 6 years old. And it's all come through a passion of just wanting to help animals. I've never known which direction my life's going to take. It's not been planned. I didn't plan to break world records. I didn't plan to be a runner. I'd hoped, prayed and desired to run an animal sanctuary, but I didn't think it would become a reality. It's just fallen into place as the years have gone by. But I'm constantly learning. I mean, I don't know which direction it's going to take me in the future. But it all came about, I suppose, when I was 3 years old, when I knew I loved animals. I just knew I didn't want to harm. I don't want to harm anything, animals or humans. I can't see cruelty as something I abhor in any shape or form. And it was just an overriding desire to protect those that I loved. Simple.
Yeah. Simple enough, and amazing and inspiring story. So when did the running come into the frame?
The running came into the frame, I suppose, about 18 years ago. We'd moved to the animal sanctuary. I didn't have time to do cycling. I come from a cycling background. So I wanted to basically keep fit, but being competitive, I've been a competitive cyclist. I then wanted to kind of move it on and see if that I could use the running, the athletic ability that I've got in some way to benefit animals. Everything I do, I try to use or manipulate in some way that I can get the most impact, positive impact for animals, whether it be caring for them, nurturing them at my sanctuary, or promoting the benefits of not cruelly treating them outside of what I do. So I'm a retained firefighter, and I didn't intend to become a firefighter. It happened by chance. But then I assessed the situation and I thought, this has probably given me a great opportunity to bring something that you wouldn't expect a vegan lady to be doing, and addressing it and making people actually be aware of it, at least aware of my veganism, and having to at least think about it in my working life. So it's pretty much everything I do, I sit down and think, can this be of use to animals? If it can't, I won't do it. If I'm not putting 100% in or doing something to the best of my ability, then I'll leave it alone and go and do something that I can.
You've been a vegan for many, many years now. I can imagine that the way people see you as a vegan and in the running world has probably changed a lot, because I know that there's now a lot more vegan runners. Is that true?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, the way when I became vegan, it was like a word that people didn't even know what it meant. Now there are a lot more people. If they're not vegan, they're vegan curious. They know other vegans. Certainly in the running world, when we started the club in 2004, it was started because I was getting very, very good results, and so it was how can we put these in a kind of high profile forum? But now, yeah, I mean, you go to races even out in the desert or in Australia, and people say, oh, I know somebody who's a member of Vegan Runners, or I've seen this club at other races. So it's grown and grown and grown. I mean, it's becoming it's massive. Veganism and veganism in running is becoming much, much, much bigger. When I first started going to races, yeah, you were always viewed curiously, but at the end of the day, if you're out the front of the race winning the trophies and prizes, then, you know, curious or not, or sceptical they probably can't be because you're actually beating people. That's basically why I started my running. It's not because I particularly enjoy running. It was just something that was cheap and easy to do. I could do it any time, day or night. I didn't need much kit, very flexible. And it gave me a forum to actually stand up and say, as a vegan, as a long-term vegan, I've been doing this for a very long time. I built all my muscle mass on plant-based proteins, and I can do this. I can beat you. There's a simple equation, you know what I mean?
As that.
Yeah, it's simple, just simple. I didn't know how good I would ever be, but the driving force, the motivation, the inspiration has been the better place or result or time I can be as a runner, the better impact it's going to have positively for promoting what I want to promote, which is not Fiona the runner, it's veganism. The fact that you can be really, really good, endurance-based athlete at extreme sport and be plant-based. That's all I've ever wanted. It's not about running. It's the way I apply my running is only the same as I apply myself to running of the animal sanctuary or whatever I do. I want to be the best I can, to be the best role model I can for the animals, the voices that they can't speak, but I can speak for them. That's basically it.
Essentially, what you're doing is pure positive outreach and activism, isn't it, through your running?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's when I've come up against negativity in the press. They say, "Oh, we're not going to give a global voice to an animal activist." But to me, I'm just active for the animals, but I'm active in a positive way. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, you've got to be active to run a marathon. You've got to be active to be in the Sahara Desert doing the toughest foot race on the planet. That's my form of animal activism, leading by example, showing that you can be done positively, peacefully, proactively, just out there as a voice, a role model for them. That's all it's about for me.
And also you're showing people that it can be done with no special supplements or protein powders, because I think your regime, your diet is pretty simple and straightforward, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very, very basic. I mean, for me, it's slightly different. Simply, when I went vegan, the products were not available. So I don't crave them now. It's lucky I don't crave them because, money is an issue for me. Running the sanctuary, everything goes to the animals. I've got very little for myself. I don't actually want anything for myself. I don't feel I need anything for myself. I've got enough food. At the end of the day, I live in a first world country where I've got enough food. To start arguing about whether being particular about food is a bit alien to me. But yeah, I mean, I have a very, very basic diet. I am a cheap vegan, if you see what I mean. I mean, there's nothing fancy in my diet. I'm lucky in that, there were no vegan ice creams, there were no vegan chocolates, there were no vegan when I was about, so I don't crave them. What you've never had, you never miss. And I don't miss it. I don't feel the need.
So do people approach you for advice on running on a vegan diet?
Yeah, it's really, really difficult for me. What I would like to say is I am not berating the products that are out there. They're great for people converting. This is very, very important. Shows like this and for the general public to come in and see that actually, we talk about a vegan diet. I try to veer away from the word diet because a lot of times people associate the word diet with denial. And I don't want people thinking, I've got to live like her to be a vegan. These shows, the cakes, the pastries, the lovely things that people can get are wonderful, great for people. And I think they have probably more of an impact than I do with my running. For the average person who thinks, well, I don't want to run a marathon in the desert. I don't want to be at the North Pole. I don't want 450 animals running around the house. So these products, but I want cake. Yeah. Well, you can have cake. Actually, that's great. So everybody's veganism has got it's all like cogs in a wheel, and we're all as important as each other. And essentially speaking, for me, my veganism starts where it started when I was 6 years old, on my plate. I don't want to abuse animals. And anything out there that encourages people to follow that same path is most important to me. But yeah, I for me, it's just grains and pulses and fruit. And my dad's got an allotment and fresh stuff, nothing fancy. But that's just me. That's personal to me. And I'm not asking anyone to live like me. But I mean, that's the way I do it. But I do it for a reason, because not many people have got to find like £15,000 a month to feed their animals. So that's just what works for me in my situation. Everybody's situation is different.
Yeah, and as you said, you're still learning. I think once you become a vegan, you just carry on learning new things and new ways to do things, to eat, and it never stops, because we've been so conditioned into one way of thinking that once you flip that, you just carry on learning all your life. And
that's
I think
what I want to do. I want to continue learning. For me, in my world, you either move forward or you move backwards. You don't stand still. I don't know I know very little, and I think that's the key to what I do. Is I know very little, and I understand that I know very little. I don't pretend to know more than I do, so I'm constantly willing to learn. And people can walk in and tell me anything. I think, I didn't think of that. I'm not somebody that's actually, I've got all the answers, I'm perfect, because I'm not, and I realise that. I have made mistakes, but the one thing important is that you learn from those mistakes. That's who I am. I mean, as I say, so I'm no expert on anything. I'm a bit of jack of all trades, master of none probably, but I do try very hard. I get full marks for trying, and determination and discipline. And the one thing, if anything gives me the edge in my running, it's certainly not, I'm not built for marathon running. I've got this disability. I was told I would never walk again, let alone I would definitely never run. But the motivation behind my running gives me so much strength. And that's the animals. So, and sometimes I trudge off out running. I think, I don't want to be here. It's raining, it's cold, it's snowing. And I think, how lucky am I to be free? Not just free to do it, but free to make that choice to do it. I mean, imagine the cruelty of being captive in cages and the horrors that go on. And I do see a lot of those horrors, and the products of those horrors come to the sanctuary. I'm just blessed to be out there. I've got nothing to moan about, nothing at all. So even though it's a hard life, 3:30 in the morning, 100 miles training a week, no money, never going out, that's fine by me. If I can make any difference at all to any animal's life, anywhere. Yes, for sure, the animals that live at the sanctuary, they're happy and healthy, and people come and they're like amazed. They see so many living together in harmony, all different breeds, living together quite happily. But for me, if I can make it one through the veganism, through the running and promoting it, any difference to one person is encouraged to even consider plant-based living, then that's great. When I did MDS this year, I was sharing the tent. I was ill before I went out there. I'd had a very, very bad infection. We'd been hand rearing 46 caged lambs. One had died in my bed that morning, little Brian, he passed away, and I didn't want to go. And it was only because Keegan was out there filming me that I went. And so I was sharing the tent with 7 guys who were all like really pumped up for it. And it's like, we've got the little vegan woman with a teddy bear in our tent. So on the first day of running, I said to Keegan, he said, look, if you can't keep going, fine, stop, but I just want some footage of you. So I'd arranged to meet him at certain checkpoints. He missed them all. He said, you missed them all because you were running too quickly. And I got back to the tent, and I arrived back to the tent, and there was the owner runner back there. First runner back in my tent by miles, and the 2 of the guys came back, and they hobbled into camp after their 5-hour stint in the Sahara, and they're looking at me and saying, Fiona, you didn't finish. Oh yeah, I finished ages ago. I'm back and washed up. And it was at that point they thought, vegan woman with teddy bear is beating us. So we've got to kind of sit up and listen. And so every day I went on, I was first running back to the tent, and that kind of really got them talking about plant-based living. And now they've got a little WhatsApp conversation of Tent 105 and all these new products that they're suddenly finding. And these are guys that you wouldn't naturally expect to be looking at plant-based.
Changing perceptions.
Yeah. Well, and then I think at the end of the race, Keegan kind of interviewed each of them individually. And one of the guys from Abu Dhabi said, he said, what would you bring to this race if you had to come again? He said, goodness forbid I found myself here again in the desert. The one thing I would bring is Fiona, because she just knows it all and shares it. And another guy said, how would you expect Fiona to be, a vegan woman to be? So it sounds really bad to even think that I'd stereotyped what I was going to expect just based on a diet. He said, certainly not expected to be like Fiona. So it's just breaking down those myths. Every kind of activism works individually for people. For me, rather than delivering hard facts and morbidity all the time, I'm a lot better. I used to be a little bit like that, but I've changed the dynamic. It was eating me up, the anger, the frustration. Why can't people see the world as I see it? Why are people so cruel? Why do they stick their head in the sand? That wasn't working for me in order to be so negative. I thought I've got to do positive things in the world to show people that this is the way to live, this is the way I live, and hopefully one little tiny part of it or all of it might affect them and change their perceptions and perspectives. And that's what I hope I've done. I try. I do try. I said it before, you try.
You do a lot. Yeah. It's definitely changing perceptions and making people curious, as you said, that if they're not ready to make the change, at least they get curious and they follow maybe your example. And is there any advice or a tip that you might want to give to someone who's considering changing their diet and maybe they're very physically active or they're doing sports? Is there anything like a one pearl of wisdom from
you.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously to do it, but do it individually. I always say athletes understand their own bodies. They're in tune with their own bodies. They listen to their own bodies. As long as you listen to your own body and be sensible, have a balanced diet, it will be a healthy diet, and veganism really is an option for you. I mean, obviously, people say, oh, I couldn't be vegan as a sports person because it's not healthy. Well, obviously, a vegan diet that just included eating oranges would still be a vegan diet, but it wouldn't be healthy. As long as it's balanced and done sensibly, you learn to listen to your own body and know what it requires, probably, and transition in that way. Just do it. I mean, you won't look back. That's me talking. You will not look back. But don't be deterred by the wrong stereotypes, the myths that are out there. Listen to yourself, and if that's what you are considering, then go for it, and it will enhance your sporting prowess, in my opinion. And that's all I want to show to people. Just go for it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Fiona. It's been lovely talking to you.
Thank you.